And I'm live. Here I am with the topic today, real quick, probably about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to talk about Beatle books because I have a lot. I was thinking the other day that I have all those albums, but I have a lot of books too. So I would just come on real quick, I thought, and talk about that. And you guys can add here on the live or afterwards in the replay what books that you have, Beatle books, and are mementos that are your favorite, and or yeah, which ones you haven't gotten yet and that you'd like to have. So I know one Beatle book that I do not have and probably will never have because it's so expensive is the book of sketches that Klaus Vormann, the artist's friend of Astrid Kircher from Hamburg, with who they met in Hamburg, and he also was a bassist for John. I know he played on Imagine and other album songs. He also did the artwork for the cover, the Revolver cover, which is revolutionary, amazing art. He's such an exact artist. So when I see those pictures that he did, the sketches that he did of Hamburg, and I don't know if he did all of them at the time or afterwards. Um, if he did them afterwards, I'm even more amazed because the detail is amazing. And the way he captured John was exact. Like the way that you would think that John would be up close in Hamburg. Um, that's exactly how he captured him. And Paul, too. I mean, all of them. It's just amazing. So that book, if I could ever get my hands on it just to look through it, I would be extremely happy. That's kind of a bucket list for me. But as it is, I think it's upwards to 500, 2,000 or more dollars. It's also the Astrid Kircher book. I have not read that. I should read that. I need to get a copy of that. Oh, May Pang's book that she wrote about John when they were together. That is expensive. I do not have a copy of that. So that's another bucket list. Hi, Carolyn Booker. I'm going to see you later. I'm going to see you at, well, a couple hours from now at 5 o'clock my time on Allie's show. So yeah, hi Carolyn, how you doing? Nice to see you. Yeah, I'm talking about Beatle books, the ones that I wish I had and I don't have. Of course, as you know, uh, I wrote this book, Nothing to Get Hung about John Lennon when he wrote Strawberry Fields Forever, but really it's about his whole life, why he wrote it, what that song symbolized, and why he changed so much from 1965 to 1967 when Strawberry Fields came out. It was a complete change. Um, and that fascinated me, and I'll talk about that. But hi, Carolyn. Yeah, I hope you're doing well. It's a really hot day here. I'm in Kansas, extremely hot. It's like 85 degrees. Um, it's beautiful. It's one of my favorite kind of days. I like May and June, and then not so much July and August because it's just so sticky and the mosquitoes come out. And I am a mosquito magnet. I really am. I hate it. So, okay. So other books. I want the book by Klaus Vormann. That's one of like my bucket list. I want that book. There's the Get Back book that came out with the movie, the trio of movies about the Let It Be sessions. I don't have that book. Um, I don't have an original copy of uh, Spaniard in the Works. And let's see if I have it. It might be an original actually. So I have a whole bunch of books I'm going to show basically. And if it's boring, come back to the replay. It's okay. I'm just going to kind of ramble to myself a lot about these Beatle books. But yeah, if you have any input about your favorite book that you've read about individual Beatles, or hey, I have the Monkeys book that Mickey Dolenz wrote, and I bought it because of the experience I had with Peter Tork, and I love his description of Peter Tork, and that's why I bought it because I wanted to hear about Peter Tork. Oh, and Davy Jones because I'd had some experiences with Davy Jones too from the spirit world, and that's the thing about anyone coming in who's not into spiritual stuff. Yes, sometimes I sprinkle in some weird psychic woohoo information of spirit. But mostly I'm just going to talk about Beatles and music and stuff like that. So Okay, let me get this started. Let's see. Beloved items. Oh gosh. The Beatles. I would say that probably my most favorite Beatle book, and they're all falling down. The one that influenced me the most and really changed my life was this by Ray Coleman, the book about John. Just the cover itself, that cover. This book was revolutionary in my life. The naked parties. Was that the monkeys? That's, yeah, Peter Tork, his poolside parties, which he later said that he regretted because the way it objectified women. But yeah, I think you're talking about Peter. Yep, them's the days, right? Oh, Peter. I really love Peter. Well, he lived his life, right? He was a different guy. He was an Aquarius and he lived his life. So this book by Ray Coleman, that's probably my treasured. I have two copies, the hard copy and then the paperback, which this I got at Savers a few years ago, which I've told you the story. The whole store smelled like pot. I go back there and there's two John Lennon books, and I was like, okay, that was, I felt like that was a message from John because these two books were there, and this was obviously now a treasure for me to have. So I'll put that aside. I don't want everything to fall down. This worries me. The best book I think ever written about the Beatles is called The Day John Met Paul by Jim O'Donnell. The poetry, the prose in this book captured me, and I feel like a day like today, right? In a summer day, the summer fair, hot and sticky, even in England, that feeling of school's out, we're free, we could do anything. My whole world is different now. My whole future is open. It's summertime and everything's open. It was Peter. Okay, cool. You gotta love Peter. Those stories. See, did Peter write a book? I don't think he did. I think he wants someone to write a book about him, which I should probably do, because he had a ride. His life was a roller coaster, Ferris wheel of activity, good and bad. He's a genius. Peter was a genius, a musical genius. But his humor was amazing. And his heart. Peter had a big heart. So after Peter died and he connected with me, and then there was the whole thing with the pandemic, the first thing I did with the lockdowns was I printed out pictures of Peter Tork. And as much as I love John and the Beatles, the first thing I thought of was print out pictures of Peter Tork and put them on your wall. And I don't know why, it was just like joy on my walls. So that's his heart. Peter, I tear up when I think of him because his beautiful, sweet heart and that golden, beautiful warmth that he had. And everybody who's ever met Peter, and sadly I never did, said that he had the best hugs ever. And I'm just sad that I never got to experience that, because if he had lived and whatever. See, Mike Nesmith was always my favorite monkey, but with Peter, had I had this huge thing about like discovering Peter Tork, which I couldn't until he passed, really, that's the truth. But I would have gone to his concerts. I would have been one of those people that would have madly gone and traveled him to see him. But anyway, Peter Tork. Love Peter Tork. The Day That John Met Paul, 1957, July 6, 1957. So it was July. Beautiful summer, flowers are blooming, and they go on a float, parade in town. John's band, the Quarrymen, a skiffle band, singing Lonnie Donegan and Buddy Holly and the likes, probably some Elvis, Carl Perkins, etc. And then they play the concert in the church grounds. My cat's probably going to knock over the computer. Okay. And she turned on Siri. Anyway, they play. And then afterwards, and John's had a little bit of beer, ale, he meets Paul. And that's kismet. To me, you know when you meet somebody, or you hear stories of Romeo and Juliet. Well, I felt like John meeting Paul was kismet too. in the same way but different. It was brotherly musician to artist kismet and magic. It was magic was in the air, and this book captures it. The prose is just beautiful. So if you've never read this book, The Day John Met Paul, it's a really beautiful book. Think about all the songs we wouldn't have, uh, the experiences that the Beatles brought to us if they hadn't met. But it was destined to happen. So that's a beautiful book. I'll put that aside. Another one, I feel like this is a very important book about the Beatles, is Shout by Philip Norman, who, like Ray Coleman, would did interviews and followed the Beatles around throughout their career. So he knew them intensely. Probably did lots of audio tapes, interviews, and wrote the book. I read this book as an early Beatles fan, and from, like I've said, I'm second, third gen or whatever, and I was transported back to Hamburg. Some of my favorite sections are the Hamburg. I think if you want to experience the Beatles in Hamburg, read this book. Honestly, this is just so beautiful and descriptive. Um, and they themselves, the Beatles themselves, said this is one of the best, most accurate books written about them. So oh yeah, another book I need to get is the George Harrison book. I wasn't able to get my hands on it, so I need to get that one that was recently written. I have read I Me Mine, which I have somewhere. I don't know where it is. Okay, here's a book of interviews and it's controversial. Geoffrey Giuliano, who kind of scammed, and he's kind of felt like he had access to Julia Lennon, John's sister, half sister. So it's controversial, but still, there's lots of interviews and pictures. So if you want that, it's all in here, and pretty good book. I also had the George Martin Breakfast with Cornflakes with John Lennon. I think that's what it's called. And it was one of those where I needed money for my kids, and I sold it. Like I sold Menlove Avenue, gone forever. And now, here's the thing: if you want that book, it's very expensive. So I bought it when it came out. I think I did, like the 90s. Oh well, that's life. So, prized possessions. Prized possessions. Well, I recently got this. Oh, your comment. Let me see, Carolyn. Did I see the commercial for Pussycats, a picture of Harry dead when they found him? No, I have not. I have not seen that. So that's interesting. How do you feel about that? Um, that's could be controversial. I probably don't think that's a good idea that they did that. And how does his family feel about that? Doesn't he have a son? Or so? Huh. I will look that up. I did not see that. I don't know why. You think that would. So yeah, let me know how do you feel about that, Carolyn? Because I wouldn't like it if they did that with John. I mean, there's post-mortem pictures of John that I wouldn't want shown in a commercial for commercial reasons. I'm sure his family would not want that. Ooh, okay. Yes, I just recently got this book, and The Love You Make, an insider story of the Beatles. I just love the cover, and I love the history. Yeah, it hurts. They used them. Yeah. Yeah, people these days, they don't consider. I mean, to treat someone like that, to me, after someone gave their soul with music, um, and their freedom, because when someone becomes famous, they really give their life away to their fans, and then to have it violated again when they can't speak up for themselves, that makes me mad when I hear that. So that's not good. I guess the only thing that we could do is not go see the film, or is the commercial, the picture. Is it a book or a movie? It's a movie, right? Oh yes, I did see that, and it was going to be. Also, did you see? Okay, maybe I'm mixing this up too. There is a movie being made about Bob Dylan, and it's with the actor. He's a new actor. He was just in the Wonka movie, which I watched with my son, and I really liked it. Album. Oh, So a new album. Oh, okay. Well, who's in charge of his estate? Do you know? That's not good. Yeah, that's sad. I will. Let me look it up real quick. Let's see. Harry Nilsson. Hmm, sure. I'll take off my glasses because I can't see. So is it? Okay. Huh. Well, well, boo on them because that's not how you would. That's not what you do to fans and people who love these artists. So it's karma's going to come back to them, is what I say. I just don't feel like that's a good idea, obviously. So, have you ever, Karen? Have you ever listened to Carolyn? Sorry, have you ever listened to "The Last DJ" by Tom Petty? Because he describes the music business and how the Sharks. And there's a song he writes. What's it called? Let me look it up. It's one of my favorite albums. When it came out, I was floored. And the weird thing is when Tom Petty, obviously still alive, did not play that album when he toured. So the last DJ, but it talks about how these record companies will take Britney Spears and people like, and now you see all these pretty art. They can sing, so I'm not gonna like dog them about their singing at all and their writing, but the record business takes these pretty girls and they used to make them play guitar, and now they don't even have them play guitar anymore. They just um, stick them out there on stage and have them dance. Okay, the last DJ, Money Becomes King. I think it's that song. And okay, my name's Joe. I'm the CEO. I'm the man who makes the big wheels roll. Let's see if the lyrics are here. Yeah, Tom Petty came out and talked about the music business at a time when nobody was mentioning the payola, the cocaine, the sex, how to get help artists that like Britney Spears became popular by the record company buying a crap load of copies of the single or album or whatever and putting it on the top and getting it on the radio and selling the front seats out of concert halls for, you know, um, the sneeches with stars on theirs. And the real fans of real musicians like Tom Petty were being snipped off. So people like me, and you can tell us, okay, well, I'm sorry that happened, Carolyn. That's sickening that they do that. And they're not surprised. I don't think that he on the other side is surprised because that's how they were when he was alive. I mean, that's I think that he felt like a lot of why he drank was to um, sort of blind out this activity because he just was a creative person. Was he an Aries? I think I've asked this before. He looks. I'm getting an Aries, Sagittarius. Um, that he had just had to ignore it, but he didn't like it, and it's gross how they use artists. So I'm sorry they're still doing that. I hate that. I hate that they do it to them. He was a very sensitive soul, wasn't he? He was very sensitive. Okay, and there's Jamie. Hi, Jamie. I think Freddie Mercury had it the worst. The last 18 months of his life were like a living autopsy with the British press stalking him night and day. Yeah. Waiting for him to die, right? They were literally waiting for him to die. And then they would be there, the first people there to take a picture of him. And that's the thing. That's the music business is just so bad. There's so much that needs to be healed. That's why I love independent music. And I don't hate on Taylor Swift or anyone like that. But I'm much more into independent artists because they kind of, it's in their hands. The control is in their hands. Yes, they don't get as much radio play. But like Guster, I love Guster. I love Train. I love, like, who's the guy? He's out there right now. I follow him on Instagram. He's the one that's saying bass backwards. Who's that guy? Let me look it up. Even Obama said he loved this guy, which I thought was so funny. Okay, Bass Ackwards. Who is that guy? Kurt Vile. Listen to Kurt Vile. He's kind of like a mix between Dylan and Neil Young. Did you know Ringo gave Harry 250, 2,500 and bought him a house, and Yoko gave him a lot of money when he was rich? Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, yeah. I just, it's those sensitive, gentle people that get taken advantage of. And I really think that's why he drank, because he just did not know how to handle it. And he probably didn't know how to speak up for himself, I'm guessing. So he's not surprised on the other side, I'm guessing. I don't know, but I'm just getting that feeling that he's not surprised. And you know what? Also, it helps expose them. So why would they think that fans would want to see that and have them treat his legacy like that? And Freddie Mercury too. Real fans don't want to see that. That's it's not how you treat people. So that's good that they helped him out. You know, Ringo is such a sweetheart. That was nice of Yoko to do that. Um, it's good. Well, anybody? Do you guys? What's your favorite book? What's your favorite music book or Beatle book? And then I'll keep looking. I have this. I consider this a Beatle book, Alice in Wonderland, especially when I read it at a time when I was really into like my journey with John, and like I love all the old sort of wood prints that they have in here. It's very Victorian, and I love that. Um, I love it much more than just like the movie, or like here's the little things like that, the alliteration, the visual tricks. And you know, I thought about, I don't know if John ever said this, but I think he told me this through spirit, that when he wrote I Am the Walrus, which was kind of like this, besides, well, I Am the Walrus was really his best song. Strawberry Fields was biographical. But I'm the Walrus was really his best song. And it came from all of this sort of thing that he had in his brain of Alice in Wonderland. And he told me it was from the walrus and the carpenter. And the oysters were like the eggs. And the walrus came along to see, there's like all this. There's the walrus and the carpenter. And the little oysters were like the people that the government comes and gobbles up and tricks. But it's just a play on words, you know. That's all. So Alice in Wonderland, I consider that a Beatle book. If nobody's read it, you have to read it. And what else do we have? The point. Harry can really, well, it's shocking. It's just shocking that they do that. But they do. Look how they try to control, like Jamie would say in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody about Queen. Look how they try to control their career and what they could and couldn't play and put on the album. And it's just crazy how these record companies and managers trying to own. And it's all about the money. It really is. It's about the money. It's gross, really. So, this is one of my favorite Beatle books. Unfortunately, it's got a rip. I don't know when that happened, but by photographs by Bob Whitaker. He was another person who followed them around. Just great photos. People who could get really close to them were able to take beautiful pictures. Paul himself, his book of pictures, and he has this show that's going to be in New York. He was able to take really beautiful pictures because he was so close to everyone. Some of the most beautiful pictures of John I've ever seen, and it was Paul, so that figures. But there's this one where John, Cynthia, and Julian played the royalty, and that was at his house in Stockbrokers Row in England, outside of London. What was it called? Kenwood, right? Which was sold. Okay, somebody walked through that house recently. I watched on YouTube, and somebody bought that house. It had this beautiful grounds with gardens, and it had all these stone and a pool. And the house itself kind of had that Tudorish castle look with the dark wood. And the friggin' and John's attic room up there where he created I'm the Walrus and all these songs. And they ripped it up. They ripped up the inside. But still, somebody could still take that house and restore it. I don't know why. Like the historical register doesn't just snap it up and restore it back to its original. Why? I mean, they have John's childhood home in Menlove Avenue. Why don't they? And Paul's home and Ringo's and George. Why don't they buy that property and fix it up again? Because I would go. I've always said they should take it and turn it into like a bed and breakfast, and then you could stay, and it would be like part of the Beatle stops. You could stay there. I don't know. Somebody needs to do that. Harry's big problem was that he lost out on a fortune by refusing to play live, and his later record sales couldn't support expensive lifestyle. He had no voice left. Yeah. See, I think that these creative people in that time were promised so much, and they didn't know what fame looked like. And like, look at Keith Moon, and Keith Moon, who I felt was autistic. They just didn't know how to deal with it. So, yeah, that's sad. Can I show you this? Okay, so Beetle books and some of my favorite pictures in here. I bought this at Christmas time, I remember, and I was supposed to buy a present for my friend. I did, but I bought this book for me, and it quickly became one of my favorite. Even the smell of it has that smell. It shows their tour in Japan, and this is what 1966. So it's right before they changed completely and do Sgt. Pepper and all of that, Strawberry Fields. But there's a picture in here when they're in Japan and when they're in the hotel room. And all four Beatles, they're stuck in the hotel room, and what do they have to do but just sit around, and they paint this montage. And recently they had some letter or something that George had from Japan, and they put it in one of the Liverpool Beatles sites. And I thought they were going to have the painting that I've seen in here and wished that I could see in person my whole life. I don't know if the painting exists, but can you see up there? It's a group project. There's Ringo, George. I think that's Paul. Paul's is very exact, like pop art. And then John's is very messy. And if you look here, like, see, I love this picture of John is just like leaning in. He's just very muddy, very expressive. He's not painting in the lines. He's doing his own thing. And and then Paul's is very exact, and he has a vision there. I think that's Paul's. But I love it. And I've always wanted to see this painting in person, but it probably doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But anyway, George's house. There's George. I love stuff like this where Bob Whitaker would try to do these sort of additions. There's John looking at his reflection and Cynthia watching. This is when they were still together. I think these are the prettiest pictures of Cynthia that I've ever seen. There they are. John with the flower in his eye. I love that one. So yeah, I love all these, and then I love this whole era of this whole thing. Putting the art with the picture, turning the picture into art. I love that. So that's one of my favorite books. Prized possession. It's ripped, sadly. What time is it? 3:00. Let me check. So I know the Alley show is not until 5:00 my time, and if her show starts, I'm dropping this live because it's her show, and I'm not gonna compete with her. Yeah, she's not on yet. Okay, good. And I got this one a long time ago. It's just pictures of John. I can't remember where I got it, but it's just one of those of his career. I love this. It shows his sunroom and just him being lazy and sitting there. Lazy John, reading books, feet up. So that's one of my favorites. Kind of a rare. I don't know if you could find that anywhere. I'll tell you what. This is a very rare book that I have. Gosh, everything's just gonna fall. And it's hot and I'm sweating. Okay. God knows where. Maybe it was at. Do you remember Borders bookstore? Because now we have Barnes and Noble, but there used to be Borders. I think this was probably Borders. Let me see. I don't know. Um, it came with the box, and on the inside is, and it had an interview. It had a CD interview, but it has all the stuff like the Walls and Bridges and um, letters, pictures, childhood pictures. Here, I'll take this off here. What else? So it's all replica, obviously. It has this. It has color photos. You go in there without wrecking it. I don't want to wreck it, but there's supposed to be cards in it. I don't want to wreck it. Can I open it without destroying it? Cards. So. Obviously not the original, but I have somewhere in the 90s, they, out of nowhere, somebody decided to release a whole bunch of Beatles trading cards. And I would have dreams of myself buying these stupid cards. And I would go back to it was a gas station in town, and I would go get the next pack because they would deliver them like weekly. So somewhere I even bought the folder that has the little, it's like a photo album to put them in the plastic dividers and everything. That's how serious I was about the whole thing. They have the Newtopia, the lyrics to Instant Karma. Just so much stuff that. What's this one? Like Yoko's artwork, which is from her book, and this is Breathe. So that's pretty cool. What's this one? Okay, this is the letter, the Newtopia letter. And if you don't know what Newtopia is, and I think you guys do, it's just a place of, well, the word Newtopia means eternal peace. It's kind of like nirvana, right? Declaration of Newtopia. We announce the birth of a conceptual country, Newtopia. Citizenship of the country can be obtained by declaration of your awareness of Newtopia. Newtopia has no land, no boundaries, no passports, only people. Sounds like Imagine. Newtopia has no laws other than cosmic. All people of Newtopia are ambassadors of their country. As two ambassadors of Newtopia, we ask for diplomatic immunity and recognition in the United Nations of our country and its people. So they try to create their own country of peace. John Ono Lennon, Yoko Ono Lennon, Newtopian Embassy, 1 White Street, New York, New York. April 1st. So April Fools, but still. And then it's got like a little drawings and stuff. And there it is. And then it has this cloth. I haven't looked at this for a long time. Just a white flag of peace. Vietnam was happening, so this was their way to sort of distract and also to commercialize peace. You could commercialize war and sex and all these things, so why not commercialize peace? Take advantage of it. Anything else? Anybody here? So one time, a couple times, there's been a show of John's art that I've been able to see. And here's some little cards if you can. Probably can't. There we go. Things like that. This, what does this say? Every day in every way, it's getting better and better. And that's from Beautiful Boy. Let me see. So I would call that a prized possession. Yeah. Okay. And I have more. I have so much more. So many Beatles books. Newtopia was announced April 1st, 1973. That's exactly 10 years to the day before I was born. Does that mean I'm real or imaginary? Well, Maybe everything that happens on April 1st is imagined, but who knows? That's up to you. I think you're real. So, uh, yeah, I wonder, when they announce it on April 1st, does that delete everything they say? Did they do that on purpose or did they think about it? It makes you wonder if it was supposed to be a joke, but then they took it seriously afterwards. Um, Gosh, I do have a lot of Beatles, but I don't think I'm going to get them all out. I've shown you pretty much all my favorites. There's this one, which is letters, the John Lennon letters, and really good and bad. Sometimes he was pissed off and would write a letter to somebody, or a loving, beautiful letter to somebody, along, like to Cynthia in the beginning. He'd write long letters to Stu Sutcliffe. Um, so yeah, and I kept the tag on because it was $9.99. So got to keep that. What else I have? My Beatles coloring book, which I got at Aldi, and you probably could find it online. But I just think the artwork is just so cool. I feel like they put the effort in, and if anybody would ever want to color it, you can hang them on your wall. So I think that's really cool. I think they did such a good job. My favorite one is, like, can you imagine trying to color in the Sgt. Pepper cover? I think that would be a really cool event. You could have a party and have everybody help out. This one's cool. So I just think they did a really good job. And the fact that it came from Aldi and it was like it was like $5. That's impressive. So I think that's really cool. And I found this. I thought this was good to buy. I have Life magazines and some probably Saturday Evening Post about the Beatles when they came out, in the 60s. There's one where John was probably at his heaviest. I have it somewhere. He's wearing a Spanish like matador outfit with a cape. And, I suppose he had just put out Spaniard in the Works. And then after that, I think he really felt like he was overweight and then changed a lot. But it was the LSD that changed him mostly. He wasn't able to emotionally do lives. It didn't help when the person who controls your money steals it. Like Harry said, I went to bed a millionaire and woke up with Tia. Yep. Yeah, whenever I think about him, I just think of this beautiful, sensitive, artistic genius who probably needed a good manager and someone who cared about his, like today, you might call him not autistic, but maybe, or just really sensitive. And you need someone to protect you from sharks. And I feel like people and it sounds like they're still doing this, which is sad, took advantage of him. So that's not good. It's a sad reality. That's why a lot of people don't, you see all these artists who they say sell their soul to become famous. In a way they do. And in a way you have to be really savvy and hard too to get to the top. Like, I'll say Taylor Swift again. I have great respect for her. To stay on top, you kind of have to be a shark too. I'm not saying she is, but and I'm not saying anything bad about her because I really do admire her. But really sensitive people who are just madly genius, like pure artistry, those people have a hard time and they get taken advantage of. And I really feel like Harry Nilsson was one of those people. So, and again, I think that's why he drank so much, to be quite honest. It's sad. He needed a protector. He needed someone to help him and protect him. So, this is the official Beatles Yellow Submarine magazine. Somewhere I have a official Let It Be piano book. I can't find it, but I know it's here somewhere. I had it on the piano forever. I don't know where it is, but it's got these. And it has all the pictures. I wish I had a Magical Mystery Tour magazine. I don't have the Magical Mystery Tour album. I almost got it one time at an antique store. I need to get it because it's like, what, $15? That would have been worth it. But it's stuff like this that I love, the artistry. And did you know that the guy who did the art for the Flintstones was the guy who did the art in Yellow Submarine? I always find that crazy, but it's true. It's true. So I love this. It's the kind of thing where you want to time travel into Beatle world. This would be exactly what you'd want to get. Just sit down and read, actually read, and look at the pictures. And so I've got that. And beyond some really big books here, I'll show you one. I had Julia Bard Lennon, John's. No, she wouldn't be a Lennon. Julia Bard, his half sister. She a long time ago wrote a book about John. It's a little book, and it's one of my favorites. I do have her book on Kindle, so. And then she's written recently. Oh, and then John that Cynthia wrote. That's a great book. Didn't she have Cynthia originally wrote A Twist of Lennon or something like that? That's out there. I haven't read that. And this is a beautiful. Because I love these photos. I got this. Just every once in a while, I like to pull out a book like this and just sit there and look at the pictures, you know. What do we have here? Oh my God, I have this. Wow, I have this from a long time ago. There was a Beatles cover band, and I saw them. That was a long time ago. Pictures like this. Beautiful. And no, it's not just about John. I will find, you know what? In this book, there's some really cool pictures of George. Like, speaking of the devil, that you never see. Like, you don't see these pictures. And I got to feed my puppy dog from Help. That's where Ringo pours champagne on John's sandwich. Here's some. I love those. I love those pictures. These great pictures. I love it. He said that if he did concerts, everyone else would make the money, not him. John almost completely stopped drinking, but Harry had emotional problems, you know. Well, you know, despite problems that I feel John and Yoko had, she really did give him a rock and a means to be safe. And kind of like Aunt Mimi, I really do feel like she represented Aunt Mimi. She gave him a safe place. She reminded him of that rock of stability, because before he was with Aunt Mimi, he was, you know, back and forth with his mom, and his dad was coming and going, and Aunt Mimi provided stability, and Yoko was that same type of person and energy. So John had that, where he had someone where he was able to stop drinking and also he did have to leave the music business for a while. So that's, you know, if not, and I have to give credit to Yoko for this, and I also give the credit to the Maharishi for saving John's life. It really did save his life too. And yes, I know what happened in 1980. He did not have his life saved at that moment, but those years were important for his development as a human being, and also, whatever. I'm not going to go into that, but yeah, Harry Nilsson did not have that, and I mean, what can you say? He kind of had that Janis Joplin energy of burning out so fast, and like Jim Morrison too, of just burning out so fast, being so creative that he literally burnt his life to the wick, and that's, yeah, Harry Nilsson. I feel like lots of fire. I swear to God, I don't know. I'm getting Capricorn now, but I'm guessing that he had a lot of fire energy in him. Lots of creative, too much creative energy. Okay, so Lennon, 1980 by Kenneth Womack. I haven't read it, and I think it's just the whole thing of the death, reading about his death, that I'm still like, I kind of can't. It talks about John's plans for his 81 live concerts. He was going to do encore in his Sgt. Pepper uniform. Well, that's interesting. and sad that he didn't get to do that. I'll have to read it. It's hard for me, but I'll have to read it. Here's opera. Opera keeps coming around. Here's something else I'm gonna talk about before I close it out. So they are re-releasing Mind Games. I don't know if they just already did or they're about to. And I have it. Another one of my prized possessions. Um, Here it is. It's that. Before Photoshop, you had cut and paste, literal cut and paste, and they created this sort of montage with Yoko and the rainbow. So this is after Imagine. The rainbow and John in the big field and Mind Games. Now, Mind Games is, and you're talking about Sergeant Pepper. Well, John had that Broadway show about Sergeant Pepper, right? And around that time, that's when they filmed that Mind Games video, the iconic, beautiful fall, the leaves and John in Central Park, and he just looks so happy and carefree, and it's cool, like black velvet with the hat and the feather and the boots and everything and the glasses, and it's just so John. I'm just so glad someone made that video because it's a magic moment. And this was before that. So what am I trying to say? The Mind Games. This album came out, and then it wasn't one of John's favorite albums, but I think the Mind Games is one of my favorite songs. I love that song. I feel like John kind of nicked it off of Whiter Shade of Pale by Procol Harum, because if you listen to Whiter Shade of Pale and Mind Games, go ahead and do it, and you'll see there was influence. But those are two of my favorite songs, so it's okay. They were always like, even Paul said they were like robbing songs and ideas from other artists and vice versa. So, okay, opera. What am I going to do here? It's got at the time, they were still on Apple Records. So, there's that. And then it became, Paul had MPL, and George had Dark Horse, and John had Lenono, I think. Am I right? So this is that midterm of before it turned over, and they signed. Oh yeah, because the Beatles got divorced. There's that picture that May Pang took where they signed the contract, and George runs up the stairs to get divorced from the Beatles, which it's sad, but it had to happen. So, and then you'll notice that after that, all the records had their own record company and publishing company and all that. Let's see, and I say too much. His parents both died in their 50s. He always thought he would die young. Yeah. He was born with a heart condition, had emotional problems, diabetes, and no support from Una. Yeah. Who was it that I felt like knew they were going to die, and they died young, and you could see it in them. It's almost like they lived their entire life. See, like Janis Joplin again. She's one of those people who, she looked older than her age at a certain point, and she lived all her. Brian Jones. That's who he reminds me of. Okay, Brian Jones. Brian Jones had a very similar thing. They're very similar, Carolyn. So you should look up. I'm sure you already have. Brian Jones and Harry Nilsson, and a lot of they had a very similar fire, like knowing, very creative, people taking advantage of them, money dictating their life, really killing them in a way, addictions, people betraying them again, and then living fast and looking older than they were supposed to look. And by the time they died, they'd almost lived all their like the life they would have had in those short years. So yeah, and Keith Moon, yes, definitely. And I love Keith Moon so much. I love all of them. Those stories of them together in the 70s, I would die to be a fly on the wall and see all of that. That's amazing. Well, what can you say? It's rock and roll. It's really sad. It's sad, but would we have it any other way? That's the story that was supposed to happen. It's sad, but It's how it was then. Shouldn't have been. It shouldn't have been like that. He should have had more protection and guidance, but that's just how it was. I mean, that's the life it was. Things have changed a lot. Musicians then would come if they were here now on the scene now. They probably, here's the problem, they wouldn't have created the same music, um, because they would have been reined in by society, by the internet, by all these things. And so I don't know, but it's sad. Yeah, look at Brian Jones. Did I say Brian Wilson? Brian Jones. Look at Brian Jones and look at how his life and Harry paralleled each other, almost like brothers, like soul brothers, like they almost had a soul seed type of connection. Because it is, to me, it's very similar. So that's that. And I don't know if I have any others. I do have other Beatle books. I can't find them all, but those obviously are my most beloved. Oh, I have this. I told you my book that I wrote. Oh, because he probably saw John as the one of the only people who really saw him and loved him for who he was. I think that's so sad. That is so sad. That makes, yeah, that's sad. Well, I'm sure they hang out a lot together. And do you know what? When I heard for the first time the Traveling Wilburys, I was like, boom, that's just so good. I wanted to be, I was just a teenager when I first heard them. And I was like, well, I want to be in the Traveling Wilburys. Get my guitar, tell them that I have a guitar. And I think that they would have drawn in people like Harry Nilsson and John Lennon. Definitely. They would have been in the Traveling Wilburys too and contributed. And then that was such a healing, supportive group of guys. Roy Orbison, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty. And yeah, I think that they would have, I think, had they stuck around, been able to stick around, they would have been in a group like that. So, and I think John and Harry would have done music together. I've always felt like, what would have John done? Because I didn't see John would do that much touring. He didn't really like it. And he didn't like the whole music business either. But he probably would have done something with Harry. But he couldn't really be around drinking anymore. And that, I think that was an issue. So. Well, my friends, love you guys. Thanks for being here. So, what with Harry, I think what he does, he's still healing, is what I feel. And he probably heals with you, Carolyn. I think he hangs out with you and heals a lot. And he needs a lot of healing. And he needs a lot of, how George Harrison had the garden and he healed himself in his life a lot of, there was a lot of things that happened in the Beatles that were shocking that we would never really know. In heaven or on the other side, I feel like Harry spends a lot of time with flowers and water, and he's still healing. I love you too, Carolyn. I love you too. Um, yeah, he definitely hangs out with you because there's definitely past life connection between you two, and you teach him a lot, and he needs that, and you give him that healing and protection and pure love, and you understand him. So that's a beautiful thing. It's really beautiful. It's been rough. Have you felt kind of a disconnect from the spirit world lately? I have. That's why I'm asking. It's gotten better, but I think there's been kind of a weird sort of interruption. Maybe it's been all this eclipse energy, but there's been kind of a strange block that's been happening. Anyway, I'll just show these. I get these little. I got this kit on Amazon, and it has all these little replicas of real Beatle items, like postcards and tickets to shows that. See, if I ever time travel, I'm bringing it with me. I'm gonna bring these with me. If I could time travel, I would go back to like when they came to America, and I would be a teenager in, I don't know, Ohio or something, and I would be like the biggest Beatle fan and go to their concerts and just have a whole bunch of fun, just have fun and go see all the movies in the movie theater. The cards, look at the cards. So that's just fun. So one thing I want to do, like I said, I want to have a Beatles channel and maybe do where we would have talk about topics every week, and maybe have Zoom meetings like between a whole bunch of us and talk about Beatles stuff, because it's still, to me, obviously I love them. I'm still just a big old fan, and I would love to talk to everybody else about how they feel about the Beatles and cultural impacts. Like I want to talk about the impact that the Beatles had on girls and women and the feminist movement throughout the 60s, because I think they had a huge impact. So I want to do a show about that. But that's about it for now. I'm going to feed my puppy dog and get ready for Allie's show that she's going to have, her 5,000 subscriber. That's pretty awesome. I'm so excited for her, and get to see all you guys and hang out. So anyway, thanks for watching another episode. Yes, that would be great. That would be so great. It would be. I love it, because that's one thing the Beatles did, was they brought everyone. You too, Jamie. Shine on. Peace. The Beatles brought everyone together across the world and in society. And so let's keep that up. Let's do it. So anyway, I still have to read this. This is what I'm reading right now. And all right, you too, and everyone, I love you. Thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll be back. Have a great Saturday night. Here we go.